peak body for volunteering in New South Wales. Grow communities and bring people together through volunteering.
You're listening to Let's Talk Volunteering. Today, I'll be talking with Euan McKenzie from the Bermagui Lifesaving Club about volunteer recruitment, flexible volunteering and adapting to changes in the sector. Hi everyone, my name's Ben Hillier and I'll be your host on this episode of Let's Talk Volunteering. Today we're talking with Euan McKenzie from the Bermagui Surf Lifesaving Club about volunteer recruitment, being flexible with volunteering and adapting to changes in the volunteering sector. Euan is a volunteer surf lifesaver and emergency services officer with over 30 years of experience in leadership roles. On the front line, he's accomplished many highly challenging coastal rescues, and his service rescue as a rescue helicopter crew has seen him operating in several major fire and flood events. As the president of the Bermagui Surf Lifesaving Club, Euan brings an adaptable mindset born from extensive experience in the fast lane and embraces the challenges of working in a highly dynamic environment. With an ethos of listen to the community, he leads a thriving team of volunteers that seek to meet those ends. For those of you following along with the national standards for volunteer involvement, we'll be covering standards 1, 4 and 8 in the course of our conversation. And we're aiming to give you some practical ideas as to how your organisation can meet these standards and strengthen your volunteering practice. So, Euan, would you like to jump in and give us a brief overview of your work with the Bermagui Lifesaving Club and particularly with volunteers?
Thanks, Ben, and thanks for having me on your show. It's Bermagui is a town. We've got a population of about 2,000 people down here on the far south coast of New South Wales, and we've got a membership of 250. So that's 12% of our population is involved in our club. And obviously, we're not all bronzed Aussie surf lifesavers. If you want to join us, we will find a purposeful way for you to contribute to the community, to contribute to our club. There's a lot that we do in the community. And I mean, we've got our traditional beach patrols, we've got rescues and call outs, we've got management roles, and we also do functions. So this really is a place for everybody. And I think we just take that ethos that if you can just bring in just a little bit more than you take out, then the club benefits and the community benefits. And we've an example of that flexibility is our local publican is right across the road from the main beach when he's at work. And so if somebody gets into trouble at the beach during out of patrol hours, he's usually the first person on scene, but he's also pretty busy on a weekend. So he's not the type of bloke who's going to stand there on the beach patrolling for 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon. So that's a simple flexibility that gives such a big advantage to what we do in our core business.
Yeah, right. One of the exciting things from our perspective was seeing the huge success that you'd had with volunteer recruitment, and particularly that story that was in the ABC a few months ago about, was it quadrupling your membership, something like that?
Yeah, we have. We've been growing. We've been growing
fantastic.
In a time when perhaps most other organisations are struggling a little bit, and quite aside from the growing, we have some techniques that get the best productivity out of our volunteer commitment. And there's a really simple thing that we started about 7 years ago that was born out of a requirement that we just didn't have enough members to meet our obligation to patrol the beach. So traditionally, a surf patrol team would form and would have set dates throughout the season where they come and patrol the beach. And to meet that requirement and the fact that members needed some flexibility, those teams would have to be oversubscribed. So essentially, to you would need 10 people to meet the capability of a 5-person team.
Right.
So we just said, well, what if we were to let the members decide when they're available? So instead of us dictating to them, you need to be here on this day and this day and this day, you tell us when you're available and we'll try and make it all work. Now, this natural balance occurred, and there were very few gaps left in the roster when we put it out to individual members as to when do they want to come and help at the surf club. And then we'd also have members that say, I call them the gap fillers. They just say, oh, well, we're just available. Just tell us when you need us. And so there was scope there to use the gap fillers to balance things out completely. And whilst it was a little bit clunky making this roster work to start with, it kind of there is software and apps available now that will help you make that happen, and there's certainly potential for Surf Lifesaving to get in and make this a very easy automated process. And I mean, my own example was a good one here, because I was a shift worker, and if I was to follow a set roster, I would miss 50% of my patrols. When I'm able to project my work roster forward. So when I put my availability down for the surf club, I know that I'm going to be 100% available to meet those requirements. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing pretty much a 100% commitment from the patrol team. We're not seeing 5 people turn up to a 10-person patrol. We're seeing 5 people turn up to a 5-person patrol. And so we essentially halved our required numbers to meet the same capability, which was to serve our community in that preventative measure of patrolling the beach.
Right. And do you think that flexibility was key to bringing in new volunteers as well as helping the volunteers you had at the time?
I think it certainly improved our flexibility. I think it improved our retention. Bringing new people in has been it's been a lot of influences on that. I think in Black Summer we were forced to adapt rapidly when we found ourselves hosting 5,000 evacuees from the big bushfires that came through down here. Now, this is not a core role that we do, but the surf club is the furthest building from the bits that burn, and that's where the people came. And then as a team, we just said, well, let's just do what we can, and let's open the doors, and let's see how we can help these people. And our entire community saw us do this, and that had an incredible impact on our reputation within our community, which very much led to an influx of membership and an influx of people wanting to be involved. And perhaps and that was sort of rolling straight into that COVID period as well, which made it very difficult to embrace new people. But we were still able to get those numbers coming in.
Right. And how have you and the wider club fostered a culture that supports and encourages that volunteering?
Often volunteers are foregoing financial gain to then go and put their effort into volunteering, and we need to value that. I think a volunteer needs to have a value assigned to what they achieve, and it's the little things that are really big in this space. Building that purpose, recognizing the commitment there's no space for lazy leadership here. We really need to honor their commitment through ensuring they understand what it is they're achieving that day and where do they fit into the bigger picture. Little things like appropriate equipment and training. When you've got a volunteer coming in, they shouldn't have to do what can be a very difficult job with old stuff and poor training. And so wherever possible, and I understand things cost money, but wherever possible, we should try and get them what they need to be most effective in their role. I think pathways for advancement need to be clear and accessible. And it's so when people want to grow a new skill or bring a new capability to the club wherever possible, let's make that training available to them, and let's make that equipment available as well. On a perhaps a more social level, discouraging personal agendas, that we're one team with a shared purpose, finding a way to ensure that the group mentality is one that of a shared ethos, so that we can make the space comfortable for everybody to volunteer, and then we're more likely to see our volunteers retained. As one of our perhaps most notable areas of retention is in our youth. So we have our nippers. The junior surf lifesaving movement around Australia is absolutely huge. And I was absolutely staggered to find out that at one point, national retention got to as low as 2%. So 2% of nippers were joining the senior club nationally. At Bermagui, it's pretty much 100%. So I really asked myself, what are we doing differently to get this almost perfect retention? And we are doing a lot of things differently, and perhaps a positive from a negative. But again, that time of Black Summer and COVID, we found ourselves moving away from the sport focused agenda. The kids were emotionally tired, and so we moved into this agenda that was built on resilience, focusing on ocean safety, a lot of positive adversity. So it was tough. What we were getting the kids to do was really tough, but it was not win-lose. It was challenge, succeed kind of events. And we have something, it's a bit of a rite of passage for the young ones, called the rock jump. And we walk around to the headland, and there's this section of rock shelf that juts out over the ocean. And it's a relatively small jump into dark, murky, weedy water, which is not actually dangerous. It just looks really uninviting. And we risk manage this to the hilt, hey, but it's discreet. All the safety mechanisms are in place, but they're not in the kid's face. So they think that they're on their own in so many ways. And the pride on their face when they make this jump, and then they've got to swim back to the main beach, which is a good 300-meter swim as well. Right. But the pride, and they move together as a group back to the beach swimming. Parents are crying, kids are bursting with pride. This is the kind of thing that can build strength in kids, and this is what I think keeps them with us in the club. And it was about 2 summers ago, a 12-year-old member was with her friends at an unpatrolled beach when she noticed a small child on a boogie board getting swept out in a rip. The child's mother became quite panicky, and this girl, just instinctively, she scampered out over the rocks, dived into the water, and was able to guide that young child to safety at 12 years old by herself without adult support. And she learnt that skill at Nippers. She developed that confidence doing those positive adversity challenges, and she conceivably saved a life that day. And that is the type of thing that perhaps keeps the kids involved, because we have a life-saving focus in our junior club, not a sport focus. And also we appreciate their young wisdom, in that we'll say, hey, you guys go and rescue each other, but you're not using this fancy gear. There's a pile of boogie boards. Use a boogie board, because they're more likely to need to rescue one of their friends, not when they've got a whole bunch of fancy surf lifesaving gear available. It's when they're going to have anything that floats available. Yep. And we don't tell them how to do it. We just say, go and do it. And then the things we learn and the different ideas they come up with, it's quite inspiring to watch this young group. And when they come through to senior club, it's a very, very rewarding thing to see them come through and put on the red and yellow uniform for the first time.
Right. So it's about having that genuine respect for your younger volunteers and what they bring to the table, not just as a, extra pair of hands to do something for you.
Absolutely. And then as the older members in the club, we can mentor those young people as well in so many ways. And they bring fun to the patrol deck. You got a northerly wind in the afternoon. It's getting a bit cool. The kids just end up bringing a bit of fun and stirring us up a little bit, which is really good. And we have another situation that occurs in that, of course, they get to 18 and we lose them. We lose them to the cities, to the universities. And so now this year's challenge is to stop losing those kids. So what can we do to retain the university student member who can't give us the 40-hour commitment anymore because they're off in Wollongong or they're in Canberra or they're in Sydney. But you know what? What I realised is they come home over summer when we need them most. So now it's that, okay, don't worry about the 40 hours. What can you give? Can you give us 10 hours? Can you give us 12 hours? Can you give us 5 hours? And then we keep that connection with them going as when they come home.
Right. And how does volunteer management work in your club? Is there one particular person looks after the volunteers, or is it a bit more of a group effort?
So we're a 100% volunteer club. There are no paid people at all. And we have a full management team, and I think it's very important to try and keep a full management team because that's the only way the roles can be maintained at a volunteer level without it being an unnecessarily high burden on any particular individual. There's various roles from my role as president, which is a sort of a role of responsibility, through to our club captain who actually manages the members, and we have junior development people. But it's really interesting because I would say half of our management committee are not active surf lifesavers. They're community members who can't necessarily offer that on the beach rescue capability, but they can offer their time and their brains and their efforts. And so we have a very strong volunteer group. And we try to have fun there too. It's not meant to be hard. It's not meant to be boring. So we try to enjoy the process and make it rewarding for the leadership as well. What I mentioned earlier about discouraging agendas is very, very important for leadership. Our role there is to empower the operational arm of this surf club, and it's not there to perhaps foster our own ambitions.
Right. And do you receive funding to support your volunteers?
We do. We receive funding from Surf Life Saving New South Wales. Various small funding streams come in each year. It is probably a fraction of what's required to operate this surf club. We run our clubhouse as a function centre a handful of times a year, typically weddings and sort of small community events like that. Interestingly, we have a volunteering team that are operating in that area as well. So the bar staff, the wait staff that are required are all volunteers. And again, that's a new group of people that perhaps might not commit to beach patrolling or rescue work, but it's fun going to people's weddings. So it's most of our volunteers really enjoy doing the function work, and that is a great source of income for us, and we are very lucky. And then, there's that grant chasing kind of thing that everybody has to do as well, which is getting more and more complex and, more and more burdenous from a compliance point of view. But I guess, and we've been quite successful in getting support from the federal government and the state government particularly to manage our facilities and ensure everything at the club stays in tip-top shape.
Fantastic. And do you think there are particular challenges to recruiting and retaining volunteers in regional areas of New South Wales versus big cities? You mentioned the sort of student exodus when your younger people go to uni, but are there any other areas you sort of see?
I guess there's pros and cons, and it's a much smaller pond. So we kind of have to make sure that we're flexible enough to allow as many people to be qualified to join so that we can take advantage of them. Whereas in a city, you're choosing, you can pick and choose a little bit to a certain extent because you're bringing in a certain type of person and you can perhaps more target for that individual type. So whereas we have to really make it inviting for everybody just to get our minimum numbers. But then small towns, the sense of community pride is very significant. So capitalizing on that community pride is something that we are able to do. And Bermie, where we play AFL in winter and we surf club in summer, and there's a little bit of overlap there. And it's a town that's very proud of both of those capabilities, I think.
Right, fantastic. Well, that's most of our set questions. Was there anything else around this topic you wanted to comment on?
No, I just think it's really great, Bennett, you're out there, you're sharing the word for volunteering, and that organisations like Surf Lifesaving, we're going to benefit from the work that you're doing in making, sharing that knowledge so that we can all provide an even better service.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for your time and expertise this afternoon. What can people do if they'd like to find out more about the Bermagui Surf Lifesaving Club?
We've got a website, so just Google us and the website will pop out, and that's got the membership pathways.
Fantastic. I hope the listeners have found today's show interesting and enlightening, and look forward to having everyone back for the next episode. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Voices of Volunteering, presented by the Centre for Volunteering. For resources, tools, training and news, head over to our website, volunteering.com.au.